Welcome back to another Mackem in the Middle. And you might be asking, well, this sounds a little bit different. And my response to that would be, so does the sound of Sunderland winning 3-0 away at Wigan. So to talk about it with me today, I have John and I have Michael. Josh today, he wasn't able to do it. There's questions on, whether we just wouldn't do a pod this week. But I figured, we just, as a fan base and just as a people, we needed some positivity in our lives and we're here to kind of soak it up a little bit. So I'm here with, once again, John and Michael. How are you guys doing today?
Positive.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Very positive.
Right. And I think that's the main theme for today is going to be that positivity, because for anyone who's had to, we've been on these pods after a couple really brutal losses, so we figured it's time to reward ourselves with coming on a winning pod. And for all those who listened during the losing stretch, thank you. And we hope today that we can really kind of, recap Wigan, which was an amazing day and really what looked like an amazing away day. And Michael, you were there. Like, just kind of talk about the build up to the game and kind of what that experience was down there at Wigan.
The mood pre and post match is just chalk and cheese. It was totally different. Before, you're right. I said during the week, and here's a funny story. And I'll get any of my mates who was next to me at the Burton game. Side note quickly, by the way, the fan who collapsed at the Burton game, hopefully he's all right, by the way. But but anyway, I mean, before the Burton game, if you look at the football, I said, don't be shocked if we don't beat Burton and we go to Wigan and get a win, because I think that's the one thing that gave me, I wouldn't say confidence, but gave me some sort of belief that we could go there and win, because it would be just because it's Sunderland. Right. When literally everyone, and I think about 99% of Sunderland fans wrote the game off yesterday, and then we end up going there and we not only beat them, we comfortably control them. And that's not and it might sound like I'm exaggerating. I wasn't. We literally did. And the atmosphere itself, I mean, to be fair to Wigan, actually, some Wigan fans have acted very unpleasantly on social media. But I've
surprised.
I'm not very. I haven't been very impressed with some of their fans this season. But obviously, there's a couple I do talk to that actually are interested in having an intelligent conversation. So, I've got now against Wigan, to be fair. Actually, to be fair, it's good to see they've still got the club there. But the ground itself is not a bad. It's not a bad ground, to be fair. Everyone I spoke to said Wigan was a good away day, and I think obviously the result heavily influenced that. It was. But the mood coming out of the stadium, you could see it on the YouTube content. You could see it everywhere. You could see it on every bit of content, of fan media, wherever. Fans were singing, coming out the ground, absolutely buzzing, shouting down the cameras in a jubilant way. It was fantastic. And I know we'll get onto the game later, but for once, what the positivity came from was that the players wore their hearts on their sleeves. Because as you guys probably have been sick of me saying repeatedly every single week now, I think the application of the players and some of the desire from the players, I think, has been very lacking over the last few weeks. And to see it happen in this game, a game where we'd all written off, let's be honest, most of us had written it off, it's something. And we talk about confidence. I'm going to say this now. If we do not get confidence from this result to go on a good run, or a respectably good run for the playoffs, because I do think we will finish in the top six, then I might as well just pack in with football altogether.
Right. And we'll definitely get into that. I'm kind of looking at basically the month ahead, right, for March, and we'll definitely get to that. But John, you watched it the same way I did, right, which is just streaming it. But even through the screen, you could just, I mean, there's 5,000 traveling away fans, probably even more, and you could just, I honestly, I couldn't remember one thing that Wigan sang, right? Their home crowd, all I could hear was our 5,000 away fans.
Yeah, we all know that the club is well backed, and we're saying off air that Wigan away is probably one of the best away days because of the allocation they give you. And I personally, I don't whether it's 500 Sunderland fans, I've been in real low crowds, and I've been in really high crowds. It's we know we've been through the shit plenty of times, but one thing's for sure, this they'll always be backed. And by, obviously, like Michael said, the atmosphere was probably a little bit flat getting into the game, but like building up to the game, sorry. But then once that whistle's blown and we kick off, then it's it's all hands on deck and everyone's behind the team. And I think you could see that yesterday. And I think the players rose to it, and I think they can feed off each other. And it's almost it sounds a bit cliche, but it almost does make it a bit more like a home game if you can if you can out sing like you say, that even RB said in his interview, like, he couldn't even hear talking to some of the players because the atmosphere was that loud. And to get that in sort of an open stadium, the stadium light's quite sort of enclosed, whereas Wigan's very open. The noise the Sunderland fans must have made was can only be a positive thing. And I think you did see that resonate through the players. And if we can, which we do anyway, if we can back them and they can feed off that, obviously I know we'll touch on the game, but we did score early. That settles us down a bit, and then I think we are then a different animal, to deal with.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of the best part, and what I'm looking forward to the most is when you have a good away game like this, or just a good game in general, the amount of content on YouTube and those types of channels, not even just from Sunderland, but there's a lot of people who go to the away games as neutrals, and just being able to see like our wall of fans from a different perspective, and just the energy and everything that they brought. It was just awesome. So, I mean, we're going to have plenty of content for the next couple of days, because we've got, I believe next game is at Charlton next Saturday. So a nice week to kind of soak this in and build off that, which we'll definitely get to that. But let's get to the game. So as we said, Sunderland did come away with the win 3-0. But I think when the starting 11 was released, I mean, there's obviously a few changes that caught the eye, but we were absolutely set up in a 4-2-3-1. Yeah, Dennis Serkin, Jamajli, Bailey Wright, Carl Winchester, the four along the back, obviously Patterson in goal. Corey Evans and Matete in the midfield, or kind of the holding mid position. And then you had Embleton, Pritchard, Gooch, and then, of course, with Stewart up top. But, Michael, we'll start with you. When you saw that starting 11, kind of what was the first thing that stood out to you?
I thought, oh, shit. To put
Right.
it bluntly, right. I looked at the team and I thought that we all acknowledge. I do think I'm not particularly a big believer in the players of fatigue thing, but even if you do believe that, you could argue Callum Doyle does need a mental rest. I just personally wouldn't have picked this game to do it at the start, because I thought Jamajli, I've wanted to see for a long time to see what he looked like in action. And when I saw that team, I thought, I want to see him. I just wouldn't have picked Wigan away to do it. I would have probably picked like the couple of home games we've got coming up against teams down the bottom. Those are the games I might have picked to do so. But to be fair to Alex Neil, he obviously got the call right. I still was frustrated, and to a small degree, I still kind of am frustrated in the fact that Jack Clarke isn't starting games. Obviously, yesterday we got away with it, obviously, of course. But I mean, like, I want to see him get more fitness. But in fairness, though, some of the team wasn't what I expected. I think most of us would have took Evans out after the last couple of games, or at least a good portion of us would, I should say. Embleton, like I said, I would have started Clarke ahead of him. But in fairness, once you saw how the game panned out in the early stages, Alex Neil's decision was more than vindicated. It was more that we all worked as a team, pressed as a team, defended as a team. So yeah, but I mean, to answer your original question, when I saw it, there was a few eyebrows raised. But you know what? That's why Alex Neil is the manager. He had his big boy pants on. I don't, so I'm not anywhere near the manager's position.
Right. And I think one thing that Alex Neil said, I believe it was either the interview leading up to this or the post-game interview, was basically just saying that football is a simple game and we go out of our way to complicate things at times. And John, I think you could see it just kind of right from the start. A 4-2-3-1, a little bit more of kind of a traditional setup. It wasn't anything crazy with wingers flying up and down the field, but it did just look like we simplified things a bit, and I think we saw that right from the first blow of the whistle.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we know. The previous manager's very, sort of flexible and promos and all those types of things. But Alex Neil seems quite simple. I'm probably doing him a disservice there. Simple, but like we say, if we do the basics, if we do the basics right, and we weren't. I wouldn't say we were spectacularly, flair playing football yesterday, but we did the right things. We knew when to press. We knew when to sit in. We knew when to defend. We knew when to stick our heads in there yesterday. Like Jamie Matete was just a machine in the middle. You know what I mean? And we've, I've just as much as anyone have, criticised Corey Evans, but to be fair to him yesterday, just kept it simple and kept just ticking over. I was really, really impressed. Pritchard led from the front. He knew when to press. And to be fair, Wigan will probably go up. They're neck and neck at the minute with Milton Keynes, I think. But I thought we really, really did a number on them. And building up to the game, you're probably expecting, the easy win for Wigan and that type of thing. And we would think that as well. Even though I was probably on the same boat as Michael, thinking, this would be the sort of game we'll just rock up and win the game. But it was nice for us to actually do a job on someone. I think the early goal helped,
right?
But that settles us. But in fairness, we earned that, from the first press, and we won the free kick. So you got to make your own luck, and I think we did that, and we managed the game fantastically. Which, in sort of the last 4 weeks, we've been absolutely shocking at. So you'd like to think now, he has gone back to basics, nothing stupid. Marking your positions, and it sounds really simple, but
Right.
just do the basics well in League One, and even down to time wasted. I saw
Right.
an excellent bit of shithousing by Pritchard that we probably haven't seen, where he stops them. He
Yep.
stops them taking the free kick, and then he comes over and books him for time wasting, and then he stops him again, and he kicks him, and then goes down injured. Brilliant.
You love
That's
it.
exactly what we've been. That's what breaks the play up, and then they get frustrated. They don't get patient and play their game, and that's when then you could pick them off, and that's where we picked up. A fantastic result.
Right. And like we said, it was right off from the start. Even right from kickoff, we showed attacking intent. Nice little bit of play down the right-hand side. Gooch held it up. I believe Winchester making an overlapping run. Ball was passed right into Pritchard, who played the ball, and then he did get a pretty hard foul. Was it Max Power? It might have been Naylor who put the foul on him. But resulted in a free kick from, I don't know, roughly about 30, 35 yards out. Beautiful ball played in. Bailey Wright, of all people, to get the header on the end of it to put us up 1-0 within the first 2 minutes. And Michael, at that point, what was the atmosphere like in the away end?
It was complete bedlam. I was probably at the top of the stand, but we were more or less in one of the corners. I'm actually just I'm watching a vlog right now that's just showing the away end of the second goal with the penalty.
Nice.
I know we'll come on to that later. But honestly, it was absolute scenes. And I think the fact we scored early, I think the fact that, again, like John said before, that early goal helped settle us right down, because we know what the mood was like from our fan base going into the game, and justifiably so with the horrendous run we've been on. When the ball hit the back of the net, at first I was stunned for a second, because I thought, wait, we've took the lead in a game. Well,
Right.
I haven't seen this for a while. Where's this been? And then obviously I was just grabbing mates around us and just going absolutely ballistic. That's one of the things I can appreciate, just on a side note, about football, especially away days. Football is one of the few areas in life where you can grab a total stranger and go nuts with them. That's the beauty that supporting or the world of sport can bring. It's just, but yeah, the away end was just completely nuts. It was completely nuts. And from then on, the fans were just singing non-stop,
Right.
completely non-stop, basically taking the piss out of the DW. And it was just one of those things where you just think, this is what it's like after one win. Imagine if you ended up getting promoted, whatever way that comes. And imagine the scenes in Sunderland,
Right.
or at least the scenes at Wembley or wherever else it is. But yeah, the atmosphere, it was fantastic. And it is moments like that, despite all the shit, as John says, that's why you follow them. It just would be nice if we did it a bit more often than one win in 2 months.
Right. And it's just that early goal, especially away, where you could just feel and almost visibly see the pressure kind of being, because now we can just play and we don't have to worry about conceding or going down behind like we have in these last few games during our struggle. And you could almost visibly see it. And then, so yeah, that was in the second minute. But from then on, I think the player that really stood out to me from then was Jamajli. Really, that's when I first noticed, because you kind of forget, like, oh my God, he hasn't played in 18 months. Like, it's basically his league debut.
What a game to throw him straight in.
Right. Right. And there's a few balls, because you knew Wigan could attack, and immediately, obviously, they wanted to respond from the goal. And they tried to play a few balls through. And the thing that I noticed, Jamajli, that we've been missing, because as much as we've loved Callum Doyle and like his physical attributes and things like that, you don't have the mental side of the game yet. And the thing that I saw from Jamajli was his reading of the ball and the play and when the passes were coming, and he was able to cut them off. He had a few kind of nervy moments there, but yeah, John, what did you see from Jamajli? Really just that back line. After scoring our goal, we had to defend a little bit. We knew that they were going to be coming, but what did you see from the back line that hopefully showed some encouragement?
Yeah, I think we were probably all a bit worried by Jamajli, just because he's been out so long. By all accounts, he was, I think, on their big data system they use, he's supposed to be the best defender at the club. So if we'd have maybe had him, last season, he probably would have been, a mainstay. But with the injuries, we know, and there's been a reluctance to put him in. But yesterday, again, I think we can literally just go back to basics. He wins his headers, he plays simple balls, he doesn't need to play aimless, stupid long balls that we've been trying the last few weeks, which we know they just come back to us. So it was very, very simple for me. I think him and Bailey Wright probably coached him through the game really well, and he's got Corey Evans just in front of him, and I'd say Jay Matete as well. And I think that was a really really solid foundation. And again, I think you've got to look at, obviously we've taken Doyle out. He does need a mental rest, to be fair. But a lot of the times in recent weeks, we've been so easy to play against with just the ball over the top. And I can't remember one time that they got in over the top.
Right.
And I think you can, again, we're going back to basics. Just drop off 5-10 yards, because they would beat you for pace if the balls go through. So drop off, win your headers. And again, I couldn't even tell you when if they did really get in or if they did win a header. And even if they did win the odd header, I think Jay Matete and Corey Evans probably did win the second balls.
Yep.
So and again, that's not groundbreaking. That's just back to basics. And
Right.
it's football is so simple. And if you break it down, yesterday was all about that for me. I think Sirkin on the left, I thought he was decent. Probably didn't get forward as much as you like, but away from home, you've got to expect that. And then obviously right back, I thought again we were fairly solid. And like I say, if we score first, the onus is on them. Can they deal with the pressure to play their game and be patient enough to keep playing the game? And I don't think they could. And I think that's what almost killed them. And then if you get to before half time and you can nick a second, that's it. Heads are down then for them, regardless of they'll get a kick up the arse and at half time. But if you can then, I did say on Twitter, you've really got to match their work rate when they come out. And obviously we did that, and then we might have got a bit of luck with the second penalty, which we'll probably touch on. But you make your own luck. We've had plenty of shit decisions go against us, so we'll take that. And it wasn't undeserving, even though it might have been a fairly soft penalty. It was still earned. No one's looking and thinking, Wigan won't be thinking, well they were lucky. Not at all. They didn't play well, but I don't think we let them play well.
Exactly. Yeah. And just the last thing on the back line was you could tell they were targeting Sirkin and they were trying to get it down to Lang constantly. And Lang's a good player. I couldn't stand the way Lang was playing. He was diving with all the Wigan fans, and this is the only time we'll say it on Twitter, who were complaining about us time wasting and diving. Go back and watch that first half and how often they ended up on the floor from just the most minimal amount of contact. And I think Sirkin did really well. Lang's a really crafty player for them. I think both Winchester and Sirkin held their own. I think it really helps with the solid middle foundation with Jamajle and Wright, because Winchester and Sirkin now they know they don't have to cover the middle at all, right? They know nothing's going to be coming through. They can focus on their assignment, and I think they did a great job. But just
touching on that one,
yeah.
So obviously it's another tactic I think they did employ, because they loved, like you say, going down easily and getting those free kicks to put them in the box, because they would have looked and thought, well, Jamajle's new, Bailey Wright's probably just come back from injury, and Patterson is probably, they've looked at him and thought, does he want to come off his line? So I think they've targeted that. But to be fair to to the two centre backs, and even Patterson, to be fair, who we've asked to be a little bit of a bastard in the area, to come out and just put his body there. And I think that's another threat that that he dealt with really well yesterday, because for weeks it's been a little bit, if they put it in the box, it's a bit, oh my God, everyone's nervous. But yesterday I thought he was certainly a lot more sort of physical and confident, which is what you want to see if he's not going to put Hoffman back in.
Yep. Yeah.
And as
absolutely.
well, sorry, Carl. I know.
Yeah, no, you're good.
When we're touching on the time wasting thing, obviously you two heard my rant off air about this. It was a bit more colourful than what I'm going to try and portray here. But if you look at all the shithousery, in fact, here's one area of shithousery that I know you're going to get to the first penalty. But if you watch when the first penalty was awarded, what Max Power was trying to do, when he tried to mess around with the ball on the penalty spot, when a lot of their players kept trying to go down as often as what they liked, as if they'd been shot. Every team in this league has time wasted. And if you want to look at the kings of that, look at Burton last time we played them on Tuesday last week. Look at Wickham. The amount of times that these teams time waste, and from as early as the 3rd minute as well. The difference is for us, we had a lead at that point, but teams that do it against us have done it at 0-0. So I don't want anyone telling us, oh, don't time waste. No, you can piss right off. Right off. Every team does it to us. Give me a legitimate reason why Sunderland shouldn't do it back. I'm sick of it.
Well said. But yeah, let's get to that penalty, because it happened right in front of the weigh-in as well. And it was one of those, we were definitely attacking. We kind of had them on the heels there. And it's just Ross Stewart, what he excels in is just being so unassumingly quick, because you see him tall, you see these long strides. That ball was getting played in the middle. Curtis Tilt had no time to react. He had no idea that Ross Stewart was right behind him. 2 long strides. He's right in front of Tilt, and he gets touch on the ball, and Tilt doesn't even see Stewart coming. And it's a nailed on pen, obviously, every single time. And from right there, you just knew. And that's when And the thing with Max Power and a few of these other players, even like McLean as well, there's nothing that fuels an away end more than villains, is to having someone really to root against.
Yeah.
Max Power, you know what, Max, I appreciate his time here. You know, I think he did a lot of good for the club, just you know, from a leadership perspective, maybe. But boy, he did a whole hell of a lot to burn a lot of that yesterday.
Yeah,
Trying
I
to
mean,
kick
I
up
think
the
the thing with
penalty.
Max
Yeah,
Power is, that's coming from a Max Power defender, because I think a lot of people gave him a lot of unfair stick. Obviously, criticism's fair enough, but I think a lot of people made him a scapegoat when things weren't going so great. So I like Max Power a lot. I actually had him.
Yeah.
I actually DM'd him on Twitter, funny enough, and he actually responded to us. Just basically because just to very quickly to make it balanced, Max Power did clap our fans at the end of the game.
Right.
He basically walked near enough to the Sunderland fans, obviously clapped Wigan's as well, of course, because he's the club he's playing for, but clapped our own as well. But you're right, though. It sort of united the fan base in particular with getting behind the shithousery that some of the Wigan players were trying to do. And it was just nice for once us to beat them at their own game. And the best thing about the penalty, the first one, is that that's a huge moment in the game with how Wigan tried to time waste, as in how they tried to delay us taking the penalty, what they tried to do with getting into our heads, because that was what Power was doing. He was trying to get into our players' heads and try and put us off from scoring the penalty. And if Ross Stewart didn't score that, it's worked.
Right.
So that was a huge moment. And with Wigan's record this season of gaining points from losing positions, I've lost count the amount of times they go behind in games, and it's quite annoying, really. But you know, they annoyingly have this, but they're good at recovering from losing positions. That suddenly, then, if we miss that, then you're thinking, right, Wigan can recover this game. We've just missed a penalty. Morale goes down. That's a huge moment, and that's probably one of the biggest things I can say from yesterday. The big moments went in our favour. There was a couple of them in the game, but that was certainly arguably the biggest one, because it puts us in the ascendancy and gives us control of the game.
Yep. And Ross Stewart stepped up. And the thing I love about the way he takes penalties is that it's no nonsense. It's none of the hop, step, and the jab and jumping, and it's just you just run straight up to the ball. Right. Exactly. Right. And so you love to see it. That put us up 2-0 at really the perfect time, right, kind of before the half. And you could tell as the halftime whistle blew, you know, Wigan immediately ran to the. And there's something weird with the stadium. I think the dressing rooms are on opposite ends, I think is what it is. But Wigan couldn't get off the field fast enough. And I think that was kind of a testament to how we frustrated them, right? We absolutely frustrated them, had a little gamesmanship here and there, winning the halftime, really positive. I've seen some of the videos from the concourse, and it looked like everyone from the Sunderland end was really having a good time, you know, during that halftime break. But really, we came out in the second half, and I think we almost came out stronger in the second half than we started the first half. But we had 2 or 3 chances right off the bat. But John, what did you see kind of as we started that second half, and what were you looking to see, you know, to have us see out the game?
Like I said earlier, like I said on Twitter, I think, you know, they're going to get a rollicking at halftime, aren't they? They know that they've been poor, as we said. They ran off the pitch, so they know. I'm sure there was a few boos as well. But yeah, I just said you have to match, because they're going to get a kick up the arse.
Yep.
They probably would have still been, you know, we can get back on this, looking at obviously our form, how frail we can be and have been. And like Michael said, the way that they can, you know, I'm sure they've got a million points this season from losing position. So you've always got to be wary. But if we can come out and just match their work rate, you know, as we did for most of the game, to be fair, if not, you know, suppressed it, then I think if you can sort of almost have them in like a holding pattern, and then when you do get that chance, and obviously I still thought in the second half, obviously they've got to come at us, and I thought actually when we sort of went a bit toe to toe for maybe 10-15 minutes, we did then create a few chances, and then obviously with the penalty, we take the chance, and you know, as soon as that goal goes in, you can see literally, I think even people, you know, Wigan fans, you know, sort of start to leave, and you know, the players will accept that, and you know, like the Wigan players, you know, like I said, will accept that, and that's very, very simple. Is go out there, match them. They are going to have to do something really special to get back, you know, even on level terms. You know, they're going to have to go out and score 2 goals, and it's going to have to be a collapse from us. So, in fairness to Alex Neil, because you know, how long have we said, you know, doesn't matter who it is, who's been in the change rooms, you know, what did he say to him at half time? Because the second half we got, you know, an absolute abomination. You know, you'd think that he said, "I'll go out there and do shit." for the second half. That's what the feeling is sometimes, and that's what you expect. But we just asked, we just need to go out there. We need to match them, especially for work rate. And I think we did that. And again, I think it was well deserved, well managed, and fair play to him and fair play to Alex Neil.
Right. Yeah, because right off the bat, just within the first few minutes of the second half, we had some really close chances. I know Pritchard had one that just was stretched out a little bit too far. Ross Stewart had a great ball across the middle that Bailey Wright was almost on the end of again. But in the second half, really the player that caught my eye the most was Jay Matete. And he was like a salmon. He was jumping for every single ball and winning so many of those headers in the middle, almost to a detriment, because there's sometimes where he'll run out of position because he knows he can out jump whoever and win the header. But it was good to see him and Evans. They're building that partnership, right, Michael? And I'm sure you could probably see that where he's saying, "Okay, Matete, you can go get any ball. Let me." And he'll, Evans kind of slots in behind him. But what'd you see from the midfield, specifically yesterday, Michael, that impressed you?
Controlled it.
Yep.
Literally just kept the game simple in midfield. I can't remember many occasions when Wigan got in behind us, and part of that is down to the back line, but it's partly down to the fact that when Wigan had the ball, our midfield was so controlled that it enabled our forwards to press and push them back into their own half. So the stats, I think it said that Wigan had something like 57% of the ball, but a large part of it was passing between their centre halves.
Mm-hmm.
And, like John said earlier, I think that the midfield enabled this, where it enabled us to press at the right times, defend at the right times. Like I said, everyone was as a unit with each other. And again, because the midfield dominated a lot of the game, and when we didn't have the ball, we were comfortable in protecting what we had. It meant that I can only remember 2 good chances that Wigan had. One of which I think was at 1-0 when James McLean flashed the shot wide of the right-hand post. And the second one was when Callum Lang or Wilkie, whoever it was, Callum Lang, ran clear through on goal, but it still had a bit of a tighter angle, and Patterson made a really good, crucial save. That's another big moment in the game that went in our favour, obviously. But when it comes down to it, the midfield really controlled it. And like John said, I think earlier, Matete, Jesus, he's a monster like the Terminator. He just does not. I don't know where that analogy's come from, guys. Sorry. But Matete, I've only seen about 3 or 4 games of him, but I'm really impressed with him. The way that the tenacity, the energy, the bullishness that he shows, and I think one of the things is a simple skill such as winning possession back, winning the ball back, regaining control is something that is so vital in a team. And even especially in the midfield, when you need to control games, Matete will offer that, I think. Yes, he's obviously a lot younger, so there's going to be games where he doesn't play that great. I think we do need to accept it. But if he can maintain what he's done so far consistently enough, say 2 times out of 3, then we've got a hell of a player on our hands. And even Evans, to be fair, if I'm going to be completely balanced, he's someone I've criticised heavily with a lack of leadership. But I think, again, like you said, Matete and Evans build a good partnership. And the good thing as well, it gives Dan Neil a mental and physical rest, doesn't it? And it means that later on, if we do finish in the playoffs, then the younger players that were flourishing so much at the start of the season could possibly do so again if they're mentally and physically rested. Overall, it's good competition to have.
Yeah, and I think what we saw and why the midfield is able to thrive a little bit more yesterday was having a solid back line, especially in the middle with Jamal and Wright. What was happening in these previous games, if Matete or Evans were to make an error, make a bad pass, it was immediately going the other way, and going to result in a goal scoring chance. Whereas now, if you have the confidence that the people behind you will cover you, if you're going in for 50-50 ball, and if you don't come out with it, it's not going to result in a goal. That's going to take that mental pressure off the midfield, allow them to actually play,
exactly,
take a little bit more chances. And we saw it a few times. They took the chance, and then they're on the run. So yeah,
probably this would be a bit of a dig at Speakman, but it just shows you because by all accounts, Fleetwood Town, they said that Matete was doing really well this season, and he's played, I don't know, was it 20 games? And it's amazing how if you sign a player who's actually been okay or at least on form and played 20 games and regular, comes into the team and just slots in, and now he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. As opposed to your Patrick Roberts who hasn't played, your Jermaine Defoe who hasn't played, your Jack Clark who's been playing kids football. It's all right. Matete's young and he might have that. Maybe might have that mental burnout towards the end of the season. But again, we need to manage him. But this is the sort of thing that the likes of Speakman, even though he's going to get criticised for a lot of other things, look at players who are playing, who are on form, who can slot in, and it's a no-brainer. And we haven't paid, top, we haven't broke the bank for him, and all. It's a very, very simple transfer by the looks. I never even heard of him before, so it's still a hell of a find. But it just shows you,
Right.
Roberts can't get a game. Clark doesn't really start. Again, Defoe, a couple of others, I probably haven't mentioned. But to get a player like that who's been playing, who just slots in, and he's been a revelation. Let's be honest,
Right.
going forward, it can only be a good thing for us.
Yeah, and I don't even think we've seen the best of it yet because both midfielders did a good job of helping up and supporting the attack and whatnot. But yeah, we controlled the game for most of that second half, pretty much all of it, to be honest. And then in the 87th minute, we were kind of awarded a pen that kind of came out of nowhere, and you could even I was watching the replay of it this morning, and you didn't really hear much of a like a shout or anything. But it was the right call. I mean, credit to the ref, and we mentioned this a little bit, before recording, is overall, I mean, it's nice for once to have a ref who, obviously it's easy to say that when we had two penalties, both of which were earned, but I think we've earned a lot of penalties in other games that definitely were not called. And even in the respect of time wasting, we time wasted, obviously, as any team would in that situation. The ref did eventually hand out cards, which you at least like to see that, because we've seen it too, where, like you said, teams time waste from the first half, and the ref will never hand out a card for it. And if you want it to stop, the only way to get it stopped to have the ref actually, penalize teams for it. We knew what we were up for, right? If we were going to do it, and we got a couple yellow cards. No one was sent off, thankfully. But the 87th minute, we got that penalty. Ross Stewart steps up again and basically puts the game to bed. So from there, Michael, I mean, overall, what was the atmosphere like again in the way fans as you see Wigan fans exiting, and what was kind of those last few minutes like?
Chance of sit down, shut up, sit down, shut up. Yeah, obviously, yeah, you can see that Wigan's fan. I think the moment that Wigan fans started accepting that the game was done was probably the last 20 minutes when it didn't look like we were going to concede. It didn't look like they were getting back in the game and they were heading for the exit. And obviously, by the time the third one went in, it was sparsely populated in the home end compared to what it was before kickoff. Because I'm sure Wigan for this game did a scheme where every season ticket holder gets
Right.
2 free tickets for the game. And even then, and this isn't meant to be a dig, to be fair, actually did look quite full before the start of the game, but it didn't look like it was a complete sellout. But I don't know if that's for safety reasons or whatever else it is. But yeah, the atmosphere at the end was class, and it was nice for once that we weren't going to shit ourselves and think, oh crap, we're going to concede here. It was nice for a change to actually see that we'd got the win and got it comfortably. I mean, I kind of thought that as we entered the last 5 minutes, probably not long before we got the penalty. I slightly disagree in that I think the second penalty is harsh. I think if we'd conceded that, we would have been livid. But again, I think one of you said it, that the amount of times we've had genuine penalty appeals this season and not given them, you know what, just take it. And I think the atmosphere in the away end was reflected by the fact that we had a game where, like John said, we weren't at our fluid best going forward. I've seen us play better than that. But what enabled us to win the game was that we controlled the game quietly. The game management was probably the best I've seen Sunderland do for game upon game upon game. And again, from I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but even if you look at defensively, you guys know how much I bang on about clean sheets and the importance of them. Hey, we kept one. There's a nice change. But honestly, the defending, the timing of the interceptions, where every time Wigan threw a ball forward, we were first to every ball. We headed it, we cleared it. The positioning was fantastic. We won throw-ins when we needed to. And it just enabled us to go and have a comfortable game. And the reason I say that is because then in the away end, you could tell people were really starting to enjoy themselves.
Yep.
I think I put up a 20-second clip of the atmosphere at the end of the game, and it was just fantastic. And it's one of those where before the game, I was wondering what my sanity level was going to Wigan, whereas once the game had finished, it was just thinking, yeah, you know what, fair enough.
That's why you do it, because you never know, especially in this league, you just never know what's going to happen. But so that basically saw it out, right? We win the game 3-0, and this really has to be the time, right? This has to be the time that we start this run. So that puts us in fifth right now, behind Oxford, 3 points behind Oxford. We've played 35. However, the 2 and 3 teams behind us, Sheffield and Plymouth, both on 33 games with 58 and 56 points respectively. I want to look ahead a little bit, and I don't know if we're going to get into player ratings. I give everybody 10. It was a great game. Everyone played well.
Can we not just say everybody was mint and leave it at that?
Right. Exactly. So, because I really want to look ahead, because especially if you look at March, where this really now has to be the time for the run. We have our next 5 games. We have at Charlton versus Fleetwood Town, home versus Crewe, and then at Lincoln. And then to wrap up the month, we have Rotherham. Those first 4
Can
games.
I just interrupt you before you carry on?
Yes.
You might want to slightly discount Rotherham because that's on an international weekend and will probably get moved, I would imagine.
Even better. And so that might even serve my...
Exactly. That's a better time, though, isn't it? Because by the time I think it's safe to say Rotherham's going to go on and win the league.
Right.
So by the time if you rearrange it for very late in the season,
they're not
going
going
to play them, they'll have already won. Most likely, they'll have already won the league. So for me, I would say I'll be very surprised if we play Rotherham, especially if we get a couple of call-ups. And for a game against the side that's top of the league, I would not want to play it with a half team available.
And so of the 4, Charlton, Fleetwood, Crewe, and Lincoln, Charlton's ranked the highest on the table right now, and they're sitting at 16th. They've also lost 5 in a row. So when you look at,
right, we know what's coming here.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly, right, and so we have to try to shake that. But John, really, if you're looking at that, so yeah, Charlton, Fleetwood, Crewe, Lincoln, all bottom half, all really like bottom half of the table. What do we have to see here? I mean, the Charlton game really becomes, in my opinion, I think we'll say this every week, the Charlton game does become the most important game of the season, I think, moving forward.
I think you have to take them one game at a time.
Right.
I think if you can't, obviously yesterday we need to use that as, sort of a catalyst to almost sort of spring us into, because I think this is a crucial period now going into the playoffs, because, a few bad results like we've seen and, you're easily out of it, and a couple of good results and you're well in it. I think there needs to be now a consistency of, if we could take points of those, in and around us, on a sort of consistent level. Because I don't, it's probably sounding a bit negative, but I don't think we're at the level where we could probably just go out and win all those games. But I think, it's a case of, if obviously Charlton are on a bad run, but we know that never sort of makes a difference when, when
yesterday's proof of that,
turn up
it?
and
Yeah,
exactly. But I still don't think we shouldn't be. I think with the bigger teams in the league, I think we should be able to go there like we did yesterday and do again what we did yesterday, because the onus will be on Charlton to attack us, and I think that maybe it does suit us. We can pick them off, and we have got the players to then, pick them off. I think the only time we maybe might struggle, which is when you've got to change it up, is when we're at home against the lesser teams, and we need to. The onus is on us, and I think we maybe have to change a little bit our approach to be a little bit more attacking, and that's when you're going to see. You'd hope that your Clark and your Roberts and your maybe Defoe and Stewart up top maybe, and we need to go for those results. But I think at the moment it's a case of getting those, steady results. We need to, I'd say we're at least 5 points every 3 to 4 games. I think. That'd probably take us towards the end of the season, and I think that will cement you in the playoffs. But I'd like us to go, to go into the playoffs with a bit of form, as opposed to under sort of what's his name, Jack Ross, where we stumbled into the playoffs and we got beat off Southend, and it was a very horrible negative sort of time going into it, even though we got past Portsmouth. But then ultimately, lost in the end to Charlton. I really do think we need to use this time to, to build on what we've done yesterday. That needs to be the catalyst, and that needs to be the standard. And we need to, because teams won't think they can just come and roll us over after yesterday. They'll sort of sit up and take note a little bit. But like I say, on the on the other games, you'd like to think Lincoln would probably attack you a little bit at home, when they're at home. Sorry, so that might be another game we can. It sounds really weird. We can let them play and pick them off. But I think that's just going back to basics with Alex Neil. And I like we said, if you're not gonna use beating second in the league, who to be fair are doing really well and have done really well all season, if you're not going to use that, then we, like Michael said earlier, we might as well just pack it in. Right.
Yeah, because the pressure's not off. I see a lot of people now like, all right, we're still in the playoff picture, but I mean, just not by much. I mean, if you look, 1 through 9, I would say Ipswich is probably the cutoff there. They're at 53 points right now, but they're in decent enough form. They haven't lost in their last 5. But yeah, you have Sheff Wednesday right behind us at 6. They have 2 games in hand on us, and they've won 4 out of the last 5. And then there's Plymouth, where that's kind of Plymouth has fallen off quite a bit. And even Wickham's kind of on a bad stretch as well. They haven't won in their last 5, 3 draws and 2 losses. But the job's not done yet. And like I said, these next 4 games I really think are the time where you have to cement yourself into the playoffs. That way there's no question about it. But I think we'll
it's
probably
confidence. It's
right.
confidence as well. You know, it's gone the other way. Like we've lost to Doncaster and Cheltenham, or
Right.
you know, and then we're going into the next game, and it's the confidence is still low. You know, so it'll be nice to see now. Can that shift? So when we beat Wigan, can it go the other way now? When it think, well, we're not super confident, but we're, you know, we know we can do it. There's that belief there, and that, you know, that belief will be reignited. And let's see now, can these group of players take that on board and run with it? And that's ideally what you want to see now.
Yep, and we have people coming back from injury. So, Michael, I'm sure you saw, Nathan Broadhead, the pictures of him back at training.
Yes, I did.
And I was watching highlights. I think there was actually of the last time we played Wigan, and there's 2 players that stood out to me. It was Niall Huggins and Nathan Broadhead, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so nice to have those 2 back. And it seems like we're getting close, especially with Broadhead. But yeah, Michael, I guess just to kind of put a bow on this toward the end, hopefully we can get some players back right before the end of it. So how important is this next run of games for us?
Oh, it's vital. Like John said, I think you've got to look at it as, for me, if you look at 11 games we have left. So I think I've seen, I had someone message me on Twitter, and I'll put myself out there. Right, they said that Michael heard it here first. We're getting automatics, and I'm like, mate, no, we're not. No, we're not. Unless Wigan do a horrendous collapse. And to be fair, I've said it all along.
Lots of games.
Forget what we're doing for a minute. All the games they've got when they're playing every few days for the rest of the season. Name me a team that isn't Man City when you've got 2 world-class 11s that will not struggle with that. I promise you, there will be a dip there. But unfortunately for us, I think we've sort of left it a bit too late in terms of trying to push towards the top 2. So if you look at it as the playoffs, out of 11 games, we're on 59 points now. I would say probably about 6 wins would probably be enough to cement you a place in the playoffs. Now, I even said during the bad run that we had, well, hopefully it's over, by the way, but you never know with Sunderland. During the bad run, I thought we would get the playoffs, because eventually the run has to turn at some point, and we have got. And I don't care what people say, we have got the players to finish in the playoffs, and I would go as far as say that we've got the players to win the playoffs personally, if we put the application into it. So for these next run of games, I think you need to just get as many wins or at least get a good unbeaten run going as possible. Yep. Even if you go the next 7 or 8 games unbeaten and 5 of them are wins or something like that, then it certainly helps out with confidence. And because I think it's very unrealistic to say we will not lose another game between now and the end of the season, because we will. We probably more than likely, well, we've lost 10 already this season, so we've lost 1 in 3 basically. So these next few games are important. Unfortunately for me, I think if I had to put a little dampener on it, yesterday was great, but it was still a little bit annoying that the win came a bit too late, because if we'd been professional against Doncaster, Cheltenham and Wimbledon, it's those 3 games for me that have cost us top 2. But get a run going. And I think there was another podcast, I think it was Wise Men Say, so I'm going to mention the point they made here, and it's spot on. The last 2 times Sunderland went into the playoffs, we went into the playoffs with we've just missed out on top 2, and we've just missed out on automatics, and now we're having to play extra games, and we're playing in the playoffs now, which is a lottery. Whereas this time, we've written top 2 off, so now all focus is on the playoffs. And I'm very confident we will finish in the top 6. So say you're going at the top 6 with a bit of momentum, a bit of form, the mindset will be different to what it was the previous 2 occasions, not just from the players, but from the fans as well, I would like to think. And that could be the key difference. And as you said, with players like Huggins, McGeady, O'Nien, Broadhead to come back, this squad's got talent in it. And I think if you can get players match fitness, if we get to a point, say with 6 games to go, 5 games to go, where it's looking very likely we're going to get playoffs, maintain the core of a side, but get some of the other players who are lacking match fitness and match sharpness games. Because I promise you, the likes of Clark, if we can get him up to speed, I'd like to see a lot more Roberts, but I think even with Huggins, Broadhead, etc., even O'Nien to a degree, if you can get these guys fitness, I promise you, by the time it comes to the playoffs, they could be the difference between us not winning them and going up.
Absolutely. And I think yesterday's game put that pressure on Wigan now. They kind of steep, because MK Dons of all teams, who I just would not have expected to be at the top, they're pushing right behind them. They're level on points. Sure, Wigan's got a couple games in hands, but we know how that goes. ideally, though, I mean, if MK Dons can knock off Wigan, take that second spot, I wouldn't mind seeing Wigan in the playoffs. To be honest, I mean, of all the teams, I mean, it's I don't know, still a lot to play.
But by that point, though, if you think about it, from a psychological perspective, we've beat Wigan 3 times this season, haven't we? So,
Yep.
and then you look, if Wigan fall into the playoffs, think about it. If they're having a game every few days for the rest of the season, they're still in the Papa John semis, and then they get to the end of the season in the playoffs, which is at least an extra 2 games, maybe 3. Their energy levels are going to be on the floor. So, if Wigan fell in the playoffs and we faced them, I would probably back us to, whether it's semi-finals or a final, unless something weird happens like a red card or a wonder goal. I would back us to give them a game and beat them if we put the effort into it.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll last thing we'll do, player of the match. So we've strayed a little bit away from talking about the match, but Sunderland do come away with the 3-0 win. John, who would you give your player of the match to?
It's quite a tough one. I think Jamajni's probably there and Matete. But I'll probably go with Stuart for tucking the 2 penalties. Well, I know he missed his last one, but that's those finishes. I'll take those all day long. But I think it was a really good performance from a lot of people, which I'd rather see than one man sort of running the show.
Yep. And then Michael, for you.
As a Bailey Wright apologist / fan, I'm going to say Bailey Wright. I think there's a couple of reasons. One, because I think the amount of times that the ball came forward and Bailey Wright was instantly there, or instantly guiding Jamali and going, right, head it, clear it, intercept it, I'm behind, just doing the basic talk. And bearing in mind, you had a midfielder at right back, you had a centre back alongside you who hadn't played his first competitive game and has pretty much been in under 23s football / injured for the last 18 months. And then out of form Dennis Durkin going into the game. I think that's huge. His presence, I think, was hugely understated. Obviously and that's without mentioning the header that he scored in the first couple of minutes. Like John said, you could give man of the match to a lot. You could give man of the match to a lot of people, and we want to have this conversation every game. We don't want to be saying, oh well, he was good, everyone else was garbage though. You want to struggle to pick a man of the match. So I'd say Bailey Wright probably from a defender's perspective, but if you gave it, I would say him. Matete stood out. Stewart gets 2 penalties, and Jamali for a couple of moments I thought he looked ropey, but in general I thought he was solid for his first game. And again, away at a team that has got quality and creates chances. So Bailey Wright for me, but I couldn't complain if you gave it to anybody else.
That's a good shout. I think I'll give mine a little off the cuff here, but I think Anthony Patterson did a great job in goal. Yeah, because one thing I've noticed in the kind of bad stretches where I don't think you could fault him for too many goals, but I think there were some opportunities to kind of make those saves because the team's only got a couple chances, and that save that he had when we were 2-0 up, but a goal there, if he didn't make that save where they kind of burst through the line.
The game's different, isn't it?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the way he commanded the box, he was up, he was winning those crosses, in the air, coming down, and then the way he kind of managed the game, right? The time wasting a little bit, and he did it very well where he sets up, he looked like he was going to play it short, then he sends everybody upfield. I think he did a great job of that, really, really holding on to the ball, really just draining the energy right out of the game, which at that point, that's what you need. And so I think he showed a lot of growth in that game and super important for him, for his confidence. You never know when we're going to, or really who we're going to rely on moving forward, whether it's him, Hoffman, that's up for Alex Neil to decide. And the one thing I do like about Alex Neil, which he already said, I don't think he's going to complicate things. I don't think he's going to complicate things with the lineups, with the formations, and that might be a little refreshing. Maybe not beautiful every single game, but I think it doesn't matter. Just go out there.
But you do need to win games in different ways, though, don't you? You have to realize that in a game yesterday, we were never going to steamroll them in terms of playing swashbuckling offensive football. Unless again they went down to 9 men or something. Just one thing to add on, because obviously I know I don't want to help this podcast drag out for very long. But with my rambling, you can never know. I think with the fact I'm hoping that we've come out with this bad run, and if anything, I'd rather we didn't have a bad run in the first place, obviously, but realistically, you're probably going to have one. In a way, we're probably better off having that bad run now, get it out of our system, and with 11 games to go left, if you get a good run, again, the momentum could be with us going into the playoffs, and then the mindset, like I said earlier, the mindset, the mood, the confidence, the enthusiasm, everything could be so different, and stuff like that carries teams through the playoffs to go up. And that's so if we can get into the playoffs, finish in the playoffs, get there with good form, then imagine the scenes if we won the playoffs, especially if you win at Wembley in front of fans. I honestly think this team is capable of that, but we have to finish in the top 6 first. But you never know. Maybe hopefully everyone above us keeps losing games and we keep winning games and we might sneak into second. And then I wake up tomorrow morning.
Exactly. Well, John, Michael, thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad we got the pod out, to be honest. And Josh, I hope whatever it's going on, we can continue moving forward. But I'm happy to fill in whenever. It's a lot of fun. It's great to finally talk about a win because I feel like it's been too long. It's been too long, and we needed that
started to
positivity.
wonder what a win is recently. It's like, what's a win? What's 3 points? I don't know.
Right. It's the ultimate distraction, especially when Sunderland wins. It's awesome, just from everything else. So for that, John, for Michael, this has been another episode of Mackem in the Middle. Like, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow us on Twitter, all that fun stuff. But have a good day, guys, and thanks for joining.
That's all, folks.